Welcome one, welcome all into Lions Central Radio. I am Nick Castora. My co-host Brandon Oliscalu is alongside for the wonderful ride as always. Folks, this week's a little extra wonderful. The Lions pulled out a big win over the Green Bay Packers at home in a way that neither Brandon or I really expected they would. It was a defensive showcase for this team. We're going to dive right into it. We also have Alex Reno alongside here from Sideline Report. We've had a couple of guys from there join us. We're excited to have him to kind of go over this Packers game and all that it had in store and takeaways from it. Brandon, I'll turn to you first. Defensive showcase in the biggest way possible.
Yeah, and to me, the biggest takeaway from this game, it is in that defense, but it came from the secondary, a place we didn't think we'd have a lot of standouts this year. Darius Slay is that good. We are really learning how phenomenal of a player he actually is. I believe in this game alone, of course, my notes are all messed up now. There we go. In this game alone, he saw 6 targets. The receivers that he was covering, he only gave up 3 catches for 13 yards, and he had 5 tackles. He's not just a guy who is sticky in coverage, and that seems to be the buzzword these days. He's a guy who will get physical with the run. And for the year, he's only given up 19 catches for 69 yards. Detroit has a bona fide top 10 cornerback, at least as far as Pro Football Focus is concerned and the tape is concerned. To me, that was my biggest takeaway from this game. And like you said, Alex Reno has joined us, first time guest on the show. Alex, what was your biggest takeaway from this game?
Well, I mean, you said it. It was the defense. Even Danny Gore came in and held Randall Cobb to 3 catches on 6 targets for only 29 yards. I mean, it was incredible. I just really love the way Terrell Austin's defense looks right now. It's kind of just a next man up philosophy. Anybody just comes in and gets the job done.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into the takeaway that I had as well, which is next man up. And if there are continued issues in the back seven, we'll get into Tulloch went down in this game. There's been consistent guys going down in the secondary week in and week out. We don't know who's going to be next. But I think this defensive line, and they were at it again in this game, they're good enough that they can mask at least some of these issues as they come up injury-wise. The defensive line, it might be the best in football, and it's just such a deep rotation, and it was against the Packers as well. The pressure they cause, and yes, the blitzes that are mixed in with Austin's scheme from the backers helps. But Brandon, this defensive line is just so impressive week in and week out.
Yeah, this is the defensive line that Mayhew must have envisioned when he started drafting all these guys in the first round 5-6 years ago, whatever it is now. He's been around for a little while. It's kind of surprising when you think about it. But yeah, there wasn't a person on that defensive line that you were too upset with. I kind of felt, I love Ziggy, but I didn't think that he really did much as far as getting after the passer. He was pretty stout in the run game, and it's great to see. One thing that we actually saw George Johnson grow a little bit during this game. When I went back and watched the tape, he couldn't contain. He needed to do better against the run. He was lunging in to make tackles instead of trying to make sure that the running backs corralled. And then as the game wore on, you could see him containing. You could see him crashing down from the end while still making sure that nobody got around him. The defensive line, it was just phenomenal in this game. It's something that we kind of hope for, considering the talent up there. It's difficult not to be impressed with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned that Tulloch went down in this game, a freak injury on a celebration he does all the time, and he tore his ACL. I think he is out for the year. Alex, just how big of a loss do you think it is to have Tulloch go down for the year?
Tulloch going down, I think that might be the biggest loss that they could have had on defense. I mean, you might want to say Levy or Sue, but I think Tulloch is definitely the leader on defense. I mean, even though he went down and DeAndre Levy had the microphone in his helmet and the defense didn't skip a beat, I mean, you really need that leadership on the team. He's just incredible on defense.
Yeah, I have to agree with you as far as Tulloch obviously being a big blow. As far as the biggest blow, I'm not sure because of the things that he does. At least Tahir Whitehead can do somewhat of a limited version. It's not that Tulloch was that great in coverage, although he did do decently as far as the grades went, which is a little bit surprising, but he's been tailing off since the end of last year. but Levy is the guy who can do everything, who does all that kind of stuff. And plus, the Lions picked up Josh Bynes this week. Is it Josh Bynes? I can never find my notes when I need them. I swear, I'm real
Yeah, Josh
professional.
Bynes. He was on the Ravens practice squad. The Lions signed Josh Bynes from
Times.
the Ravens practice squad.
Right, and he's another guy who can tackle well. He started 6 games last year, played 9 others, and like you said, has that experience with the system. He had 46 tackles last year and only 4 missed, and he even graded out in the positive. So I feel like they can get a lot of the things from Bynes or from Tahir Whitehead that they could have gotten from Tulloch.
Yeah, and the question that comes out of this, and it was posed to us on Facebook by Richard Nine, and we encourage everyone to participate in the mailbag on Facebook and Twitter and what have you. But it's should DeAndre Levy, move to middle linebacker, or should Tahir Whitehead take that role? If I could go first on this one, I would rather see Levy stay at outside backer, where we've seen him have his best success and where he's become one of, I think, the best outside linebackers in the league. I thought earlier when he did play a little bit of middle linebacker, he struggled. I think he's just much more naturally suited to the outside backer spot, and I'd rather at least give Whitehead a chance to step in and try that role and see how it goes. And if you do need to go to Levy, who's a more established guy, then you take that step. But I'd rather, for right now at least, keep Levy at outside backer. Alex, where would you rather see Levy at this point?
Well, I would have to agree with you. I mean, Jim Caldwell said it himself. He doesn't really want to mess with Levy leaving the will position. I mean, he's been just so phenomenal playing the will. So I think Tahir Whitehead could definitely take over that position. I mean, we saw a little bit in the third preseason game when he had 11 tackles and got those 4 for a loss and 3 sacks. He looked amazing. I mean, granted, it's going against third stringers, but I mean, I think he'll do a good job. He took a couple bad angles against the Packers when he took over for Tully, but he'll grow as the season progresses, and I think he'll definitely do a better job.
And I think, yeah, we're going to go 3 for 3 on this one. I think that Levy needs to stay at the weak side as well, just because when a guy is coming into his own and really performing at an all-pro level, you don't go switching his position unless absolutely necessary, which at this point it isn't. There were some other injuries from this game. I don't think that any of them were, obviously none of them were nearly as devastating. You had Cassis Vaughn, who didn't play anyways, who they reported was walking out in a walking boot. So that doesn't bode very well as far as his availability in the future. And then Don Carey re-injured his hammy. It was the second play of the game.
Yep.
So it hurts the depth back there, but at this point, I think we kind of have to trust Terrell Austin not to make a mistake. Unfortunately, the defense isn't making mistakes. The offense is. Nick, why isn't this team getting into the end zone?
It's a great question because after week 1 against the Giants, it seemed like they could do just about anything they wanted to do offensively. They were getting everyone involved. Calvin was the star, obviously, with the 2 touchdowns and whatnot, but everyone was getting involved, and now it seems like the offense is just stalling at inopportune times, especially in week 2. They were at least moving the ball, and they fumbles, interceptions, what have you. It was turnovers that were stopping drives. And week 3, I don't really know what the question or answer for the offense was. They just seemed out of sync. I saw some good things out of Reggie Bush, obviously, which we'll get into later, Brandon. But just overall, there was no is fluidity the right word? There was no flow to this offense. 3 and out, 3 and out. I mean, I never saw real progress from beginning to end of this game.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do you have any magic potions, any magic answers over there, Alex?
I really can't even put a finger on it either. I mean, it's just amazing. We all thought that the offense was going to be the answer this year, and then all of a sudden defense is number 1 in the NFL. It's incredible. But I think Joique Bell's having a down year so far. Reggie Bush is looking better. Stafford, I mean, he's so random. The first game he looked like an elite quarterback. Second game, no. Third game against the Packers started off bad, ended up getting the job done. So, I mean, I guess we'll have to see going up against the Jets. I mean, Stafford's really going to have to be on his A game because that rush defense of the Jets, I mean, number 1 in the NFL. I mean, Stafford's got to do something.
Yeah, I agree that he definitely has to do something. But you did mention that number 1 defense, which really helps things. Also, that this is your first time on the show. We want to thank you very much for coming on. You can find Alex Reno's work on Sideline Report. And why don't you go ahead and throw out your Twitter handle as well, Alex?
It's at Alex_Reno. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, and Alex does a lot of great breakdowns of film and stuff like that. He has some quality tweets. I definitely encourage everybody to give him a follow. And thanks again, Alex. Well, I'm sure we'll have you on again sometime. Now I want to dig into this question with you, Nick, as far as why the offense isn't closing out drives. I went back and I looked at the play-by-play, and then I watched a little bit more film on it. I mean, it's only so many hours you can devote to watching the same game of it. It's that ugly on offense. It's the offensive line.
Yeah.
It really, really is. There were only 3 drives in the second half and only 1 stalled out, but that was that fumble where I don't know if Garrett Reynolds was awake, alive, whatever it could have been, but every drive that got killed was basically because of the line. There was the 5-yard loss on the Jeremy Ross end around. There's obviously the field goal drive, can't blame him for that, but the fumble and then the interception, that's just unlucky. But one telling stat that came from Stats LLC, Tim Twentyman put this out there. I can't remember which article or if it was a tweet or whatever. But Stats LLC has a stat called Protection Index, which it uses things like length of passes, penalties by offensive linemen, sacks allowed, quarterback hurries, and knockdowns. They graded a 43.6 out of 100. 4th worst in the league. You can't get into the end zone if you don't have time to throw the ball.
Brandon, you're throwing all kinds of advanced metrics at me here. 43.6 out of 100, though. I do know, based on that scale, it's not very good, and they didn't look very good in this game. I'll just go for more of the raw, old-school baseball mentality, where I don't know whip and war, but I know what I saw, and it wasn't great from the offensive line. I think it starts at right tackle, as we've gotten into, and the loss of Waddle and what that means for this team. Really, I think the biggest thing is the rushing attack, and it's, I don't know if you can even call it inconsistency, but they rushed the ball 38 times. They were committed to running the football in this game, but yards per rush was only at 3. And you're not going to win. They won this game. You're not going to win a ton of football games when you're only getting 3 yards a rush. And there's between Joique Bell and Reggie Bush, one guy every week having a decent to good week as opposed to having 2 great performances, which we just haven't seen yet. I need to see more out of this running game, and it starts with the beef up front, being able to move the pile and move the defensive line back, and they just don't seem to be able to do it at this point. And I don't understand why, especially when you have a guy like Larry Warford at right guard, who I think can be one of the best guards in this league and showcased that last year. He needs help from right tackle. He's not getting it right now. I understand that. It's just I thought we were going to see so much more out of this unit.
Well, I remember we talked about this before the season. You poo-pooed my concerns. I just want to remind you of that.
Okay.
Actually, and it is hard to really blame you for not foreseeing 2 right tackle injuries, but come on, you should have at least saw 1. This is the Lions.
What was I thinking?
But actually, and you touched on him, Larry Warford, so far, and I think we're going to, I don't know, we're going to talk about it, maybe do some quarter poll look-backs or maybe wait till the mid half of the season.
He's regressed.
He's been my most disappointing line of the season, and that's including Matthew Stafford, who, when the tape was a lot kinder to him than you think, he was under constant pressure. Rob Sims, I talked about him regressing a lot last year. He's still looking pretty bad. He's getting blown off the ball early and often. It's really concerning. But one thing that, while you have to look past that, I guess, and hope that they gel once they get the right tackle back. And Waddle went through a limited practice. Today is Wednesday when we're recording, so it looks a little better, but we really don't know. If they can't get Waddle up this week, or say even next week, do you think the Lions need to make a move and bring somebody else in?
I mean, is it almost hard to justify that and not wait? Or I'd like to see him wait on Waddle, and as long as they can find ways to win football games in the interim, I don't say you rush to make that move. The offensive line hasn't been good enough, bar down, especially at the right tackle position. That being said, the team is 2-1, and Waddle's at least, we think, close to coming back. So I think you can play the waiting game just because you're not in such a tough position. You're not already in an early season hole. That Waddle, I think, is the answer at right tackle, and we know that. So I'm willing to wait it out at this point.
Yeah, I agree. You're not going to be able to find somebody who's going to know the line calls. There's a reason Eric Winston keeps getting dropped from teams. It's because he's not playing well. So, unfortunately, I think it's just something that they're going to have to get through. That being said, when the offensive line needed to take care of, keeping Stafford at least somewhat upright and somewhat unmolested, and also opening up a few rushing lanes to where Reggie Bush could squeeze through, or so. Well, actually, Theo Riddick I thought ran better than Joique Bell. It's like so Joique Bell could stumble through.
Mm-hmm.
They did dominate that time of possession battle, and that second half. They had the ball for 20 out of 30 minutes, and I believe that's something that, if it wasn't this week, it was at least in the last 2 weeks that you talked about.
Yeah, I mean the final number is 38 minutes 13 seconds for Detroit, 21:47 for Green Bay. They did run the ball 38 times. I mean they were committed to that ground game, and the average was only 3 overall. Reggie Bush had 12 carries for 5.1. Theo Riddick had 3 for 5.3. It really was Joique. He had 15 carries, the most on the team, but only averaged 2.2. His longest was only 5 yards. So there's where the stumbling blocks come from. But yeah, the Lions won the time of possession battle, which is just huge, game in and game out. But especially for this team, if they can win the time of possession battle while their rushing game isn't really in top form, I mean, that's just huge moving forward. I hope it's something we don't see a lot moving forward. You want to see them be able to move the ball consistently on the ground. But if you're going to win time of possession, you got a shot to win every game you're in.
Yeah, I agree. It is kind of weird though, because when we thought of what this offense was going to be yeah, we were thinking quick strike, no huddle, throwing the ball down the field.
20 tight ends, they're throwing it short.
Exactly, but it's part of that is because I got to get the ball out before Garrett Reynolds or Cornelius Lucas get Stafford killed. So that's understandable. One of them is definitely not going to be starting soon. One of them might be out of a job. But what we do know is Nate Freese missed another field goal, this time a 41-yarder, left hash. Just it went straight, kind of. It just didn't go straight towards the goal, which is, a little bit of an issue. Alex Henry is in. He was with the Eagles for a couple of years, got beat out by a rookie this year, Cody Parker. Are you feeling a little bit better, Nick?
I saw a stat, and this isn't for verbatim, but it was something like of the first 10 field goals in the NFL this season attempted from 40 to 49 yards that were missed, the first 10 misses, 4 of them were Nate Freese's. I mean, it's just not good enough. It's nowhere near good enough for your starting kicker. This town had Jason Hansen for around 20 years, so we had the best of the best and aren't used to dealing with a new kicker or not having a good enough kicker. I've seen some people claiming they really want David Akers back in the fold at this point. I'm not one of those. I'll take our chances on another former Philly here, but Henry, he spent 3 years with the Eagles. In that time, he was 22 of 26 from 40 to 49. So already, in 3 years, he had as many misses from 40 to 49 as Freese already did this season. He may be a cast-off for the Eagles. Cody Parkey beat him out for the job, what have you. It's an upgrade from what we were dealing with, and I'll take any upgrade at this point. What you're going to get on the free agent market at kicker obviously isn't one of the 32 best kickers in the league, otherwise he'd have a job. But whatever it is better than what we've been dealing with.
Well, with kickers, it's so finicky. He's a career, I think, 86%, something right around there. He had a little bit of I think he missed a couple kicks toward the end of the season last year that might have blew his confidence a little bit. But obviously, he came into the workout and did well enough to get the nod. So I think that's a good thing. I think it was a necessary move. Obviously, it's a good thing. Great analysis, the only kind you can get right here on Lions Central Radio. But that actually brings me to one more thing I want to talk about before we get into our MVPs and all that good stuff. The decision to kind of sit on the ball there until they picked up a first down running or short passing, whatever it was, when you had 3 timeouts, over a minute left, and I'm talking about the end of the first half when Freese ended up missing that field goal. There is no trust in Stafford. I felt like a more clear message couldn't have been sent. It kind of made me uneasy.
Yeah, you'd like to see this team that's supposed to have such a high-performing, high-prolific offense, which they are fully capable of doing. We just haven't seen a ton of it in weeks 2 and 3. Really take their shots downfield and go for something like that, and just see what happens. Because especially with as little faith as even at that point we had Nate Freese to make long field goals or what have you. You have Calvin Johnson. You're a team that's supposed to be able to have a vertical passing game. Take shots downfield. I mean, I don't know what the worst that's going to happen there is, other than you're going to have to punt and pin Green Bay deep anyway with barely any clock remaining. I'm with you. I wanted to see a shot downfield there, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah, I agree, especially with how well your defense is playing. It's like, why not at least try a little bit? When you come out running the ball, it's like, what are you doing? And then you end up taking that shot deep, and you get it. If you hadn't screwed around in the beginning, maybe you have some time to actually, get within field goal range, which Richard Nine actually said to me not that long ago. He was talking about it that with Freeze, you didn't get in the field goal range so you got to the 10-yard line. So you needed
Yeah.
that extra time, obviously, and you had the timeouts to do it. It was a little disappointing, but I guess it's neither here nor there. So let's move on from the disappointing. Let's go on to the things that make us happy. Who was your MVP of this week?
Uh, you could pick just about anyone off the defense. Not anyone, but there was a lot of standouts on the defensive side of the ball, as we've already detailed. There's a number of names you could go with, but as when Tolik went down and you lose your defensive leader or one of them and your middle linebacker, DeAndre Levy stepped up in a big way, and he steps up every week. He's arguably one of our best defensive players. Not even arguably, he is one of our best defensive players. I'd argue he is our best defensive player. But he had 10 total tackles in this game, 9 solo, a tackle for a loss, 2 pass deflections. The Lions are in good hands at linebacker with Levy leading that group. We'll see what Tahir Whitehead does. But I have ultimate faith in DeAndre Levy, and he showed why in this game. And he's just so consistent. And a couple years ago, we had such concerns with him and what kind of player he was going to be, and hot and cold, and if he would ever develop into the talent that he was capable of being. And we're seeing it week in and week out. And I think he's just so underrated still, even at this point. He really is one of the best outside linebackers in the league, and he's not getting the recognition he deserves for it. I love watching DeAndre Levy play the game. I love how he wraps up and form tackles and does all the little things the right way. He was on display against Green Bay. He's going to be on display next week against the Jets and moving forward. So DeAndre Levy gets it this week. I could give it to him darn near every week, but I really wanted to highlight him here.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing wrong with going with Levy. I mean, that burst and recognition on that safety was just beautiful.
Yeah.
And the end of the game, he was the guy with basically the game in his hands. Third and fourth down, he was playing in the slot, playing tight coverage. He was the guy that was right there on Jordy Nelson on that last throw on fourth down. Granted, we didn't know it would be the last throw considering there were 6 minutes left, but it did end up being Rodgers' last throw. To be fair, if Rodgers had thrown the ball a little better there, probably it's a touchdown.
Open. Yeah, he was open.
But it was decent coverage. I think that more had to do with Quinn. Quinn was out of position on that one. But it was still decent coverage by him. One thing I want to bring up, I wanted to call back real quick to Tahir Whitehead. I forgot about this in my notes, but I did see a lot of things I like. I focused on him on the second half when I was watching the tape. He doesn't overcommit to the ball carrier. He can slice through blockers. I didn't see him getting off blocks once they got their hands on him, but that's obviously a difficult thing for anybody, much less a young guy like himself. And as far as the 17-yarder where Lacy basically doubled his yardage, that was on Eddie Lacy. We actually saw something good from him as far as a great recognition and a beautiful cut. Mm-hmm. But those guys all come under the umbrella of my MVP of this game, and it's Terrell Austin. In my preview piece, I wrote about this, that it takes everyone to shut down somebody like Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb and Eddie Lacy. And everybody was performed. Like you said, there are a ton of guys you could pick. Sue was great. Fairley was great. And Darius Slay was phenomenal, as was Quinn for the most part, except for that last one that I'm taking the task for. And even Gore, like Alex Reno said. But the guy who orchestrated all of that, the guy who kept 2 safeties deep the whole game, it dared Green Bay to try to pick something up. Green Bay never had a completion longer than, I think, 18 yards. That's because they were tackling so well and they were in the right position. And that's all due to Terrell Austin and his scheming. I really thought we saw his value in this game.
Yeah, we really did, and it's something we touched on. Not touched on. We got into in depth in the preseason was the different defensive schemes we were going to see, and how this wasn't just going to be a bull rushing defensive line. There's going to be blitz packages. There's going to be different looks, and teams that to this point at least aren't used to it. They haven't adjusted to it, and we'll see what happens the next time around we play Green Bay and how they attack this defense. That'll come at the very end of the season at Lambeau, so that'll be a totally different environment. But Terrell Austin's schemes confused Green Bay in this game and really got to him. You saw, I mean, that's one of the best, at least passing games in the league. And Detroit, who's supposed to have one of the worst secondaries in the league, just completely shut him down. So, yeah, if you're going to pick an MVP, Terrell Austin was just as valuable as a DeAndre Levy or anyone else on this defense. So I love when we're in agreement because it's just so much fun for the radio show. But, yeah, Terrell Austin was great. Most disappointing, couple of ways you can go, and pretty much all of them are offensive. I'll stick with the red zone offense in and of itself. The Lions had 19 points in this game. None of them came from the red zone offense. They were 0 for 2 in that regard. inability to score once you get down there. I don't know. We've touched on the offense not being able to finish drives and put the ball in the end zone. When you're in the red zone, you got to find ways to put points on the board. And the Lions didn't do it in this game. I don't know if it's going to be a trend moving forward. I certainly hope not, but it is a concern.
Yeah, it's something that, like I said, I think the offensive line is going to be the key. Once it's kind of whole, hopefully they can regain what they were last year. I don't know if they can be as good because Dominic Raiola played out of his mind last year, and it was uncharacteristic. He was definitely due to regress some. But hopefully, once Waddle's back, it stabilizes, gets a little better, and they can you know, start putting the ball in the end zone because that's what they're supposed to do. Another guy who is supposed to put the ball in the end zone and isn't is my most disappointed player of the week. That's Joy Bell. He just doesn't look like he has burst right now. I don't know if he's heavier than usual, if he's just kind of if he's dealing with some nagging injury that we don't know about. But he didn't look to be running with the same aggression. Now, to be fair, he did have a game-sealing power rush later in the game, and it was nice to see him really just truck that guy to get that last first down. I mean, he carried him, but overall, it's just been disappointing so far.
Yeah, undoubtedly, and you'd hope to see that change next week, but you're going up against a really good rush D in the Jets, which we'll get into further in a couple minutes. Unsung hero from this game. For me, it's someone we haven't mentioned so far, and that's Tahir Whitehead. Oh, my bad. You actually touched on him quite a bit. Gave us a real detailed look at Tahir Whitehead's game and his impact on it. No, Whitehead did have 4 total tackles, 3 solo. Just to be able to come in on short notice like that, you're not expecting to get the minutes or the plays, the snaps that he did. I thought he looked good, at least competent at worst out there. I don't feel too bad about him moving forward. I think he's going to be able to step in capably, and I think he should be the middle linebacker. So I won't get in too much further into how he was in this game, but I really liked what I saw. You went a different direction here.
Yeah, and I even went a different direction with what's on our sheet there because I just love to keep you off guard, steal all your material, do what I can to make myself look really, really good. But I wanted to talk about Riley Reef. I thought that out of all the offensive linemen, he's the only one that really seemed to put forth a decent effort, and that is true. But when I thought about it, I think it might be Joe Lombardi.
Go with the other coordinator.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was looking at my notes here as I have multiple screens up with all kinds of notes, and we have our rundown for what we go off of. But this really stuck out to me is that there was an excellent decision to go to a ball control offense in the second half. Stafford's still looking a little iffy, making some decisions that we didn't really like to see or not quite as accurate. So they adjusted the game plan. They started throwing these short passes. And then Bush's touchdown was excellent play calling, the way that they set everything up. They set it up with 2 runs to the power side by Bell and Riddick that were right there, that were cut inside, towards the tackle and tight end. And then they've run that kind of, and I'm blanking, but like a rush or a sprint sweep basically with Bush around that side. And the defense was somewhat caught off guard. They had motioned. I think it was Pettigrew or Fourier. I can't remember which one on the top of my head. I think it's
we
Pettigrew.
know it wasn't Ebron.
And that took away Clay Matthews, or not Clay Matthews, AJ Hawk, and the rest is what it was. He was able to use his speed. By the time somebody touched him, he was already at the 4-yard line. So to me, I think it was Joe Lombardi that really put together, or actually it wasn't put together the game plan to win. He adjusted on the fly, and that's something we haven't seen in Detroit in a long, long time.
So the point here is Detroit walks away with the win. They're 2-1. All smiles after this week. So Detroit's 2-1. Chicago's 2-1. Minnesota and Green Bay are 1-2 in this division, and it's supposed to be one of the best in football. You're supposed to have 3 teams here: Detroit, Chicago, and Green Bay, that should all be in the playoff hunt and are going to compete for the division title. Minnesota's expected to fall back. We saw now Matt Castle goes down for the year. Teddy Bridgewater's going to get a chance there. That's a developing team. We don't expect them to be in the hunt. The question here, Brandon, and it's one that I've seen posed a couple different places already, is was the NFC North overrated going into this season? And we'll both take a chance at this, but I still have serious faith in the Chicago Bears. But Green Bay, so many questions. That running game just isn't there yet. Maybe it will be with Lacey, but I don't trust it. I don't like their defense at all. I like Detroit's defense a lot better than I do Green Bay's. I think it's going to be a two-horse race between Detroit and Chicago. It was fair to overrate the NFC North, I guess, but I think Green Bay is the only one of those three that's really going to take a step back moving forward.
Wow, you're going to take the number one defense in the league over Green Bay's. That's great, Nick. Good job.
Do you really believe we're the number one defense in the league here in Detroit?
Yeah, and actually, I think they can even keep it up once.
Seattle might have something to say about that, buddy.
Well, as far as yards and points, yes, and you're right in a way, but I guess what I meant to say is that I think this defense is as good as it's playing, and I think it's going to continue because it all comes down to that defensive line, the way they penetrate, the way they blow up plays back there. Aaron Rodgers was getting harassed by Nick Fairley while he was still trying to run back, not even a drop back.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, I think this defense is that good. I think maybe I overrated the Bears a bit. I thought that defense would be a little bit better than it is. It's not very good. Maybe Jared Allen was, and we knew he wasn't exactly great last year or consistent, but he killed the Lions, so maybe I was just scared of him.
Yeah.
But as far as Green Bay, I talked about it before the season. I think you agreed with me. I think you made your points as well to this. We weren't that scared of Green Bay. I mean, we were because it's Aaron Rodgers and because of the history, but we knew that they weren't going to be that great. And it's showing. They didn't do anything to address their defensive deficiencies, even though that's been a problem for the last 3 years. And well, this is what happens.
I'm sure I noticed this at some point, but looking at the schedule now, Detroit doesn't get a taste of Chicago until Thanksgiving. Their two games against the Bears are weeks 13 and week 16, so the playoff race will already be in full swing by the time the Lions and Bears finally square off. There's going to be a lot of build-up to those games when they finally do happen.
Yeah, I mean, Thanksgiving, national audience, Chicago, Detroit, it's going to be a fun one. Hopefully everybody, hopefully there's a Lion still standing at that point, the way injuries have been going. And I guess that's as good a time to any to let you guys know what's been going on. As far as, like I said, today's Wednesday. We have some practice updates, and like I said, I wonder if Joique Bell's knee isn't a bigger problem than it was. He was limited in practice today. Also limited, and this is a good thing, I think, Adrian Waddle. He's out there. Calvin didn't practice. That ankle injury he got late in the game, which he still went out there, but he was more of a decoy.
He's fine.
You seem pretty confident. I don't know. I know that there was actually an injury there. With an ankle, you can tape it up and go, though. So I guess hopefully it won't be that big a deal. But as far as the other guys, we had George Johnson fully practiced. He was dealing with the groin last week. Played anyway. Ziggy and Nick Fairley both are limited, but they also played last week. And James Iadebo, getting fully participating. Maybe that'll be exactly what the Lions needed to keep up that great rushing D without Tulloch.
Yeah, former guest of the program. Loved having him on. Love to see him on the field at some point. He's supposed to be one of the biggest additions to this defense. We haven't really got a chance to see Iadebo yet. The secondary could sure use him, and a full practice is a good start. I think working in against hopefully against a Jets passing game that isn't very good would be a great first game for Iadebo to get his legs under him. Fully practiced is a great start to the week, but we need to see him in pads on Sunday before we make judgment on Iadebo.
Yeah, at this point, it's I've been fooled too many times. So
exactly.
I'm not getting excited until I see something that says active. Well, and I guess that's as good a time as any to bring up what he's going to be active for. The New York Jets, Troy Lions going to New York on Sunday. Jets are 1-2, and they're coming off a loss to the Bears on Monday night.
Yeah.
They were pretty competitive, and their offensive coordinator, you might recognize him, Nick.
Yeah, oh well. Most Lions fans would. Marty Morningweg. The Jets through 3 weeks. Let me give you a quick taste here. They won week 1 against Oakland. They won 19-14 in that one, and then since they're running the gamut with the NFC North, Green Bay, Chicago, and Detroit. They were at Green Bay, had a huge lead over the Packers. Packers came back and won that one. So Jets lose 31-24. Marty has been a constant source of critique for the Jets, and against Chicago they lost 27-19, as you said. Geno Smith's the QB, inconsistent. He's had some real moments, though. Geno Smith's someone I just can't figure out watching. He has moments where he looks really good, and then more moments where he's just a young quarterback who doesn't set his feet, makes bad throws, bad decisions. But
Where have I heard that before?
I don't know where bad feet and bad mechanics and bad decisions would have ever come up on a Lions Central podcast. My point being, I'm not scared of Geno Smith, and I don't think many Lions fans will be facing that passing game. It's not a very intimidating one. But the Jets do have some things that should scare you or will. Brandon, what's the best part or the scariest part of the Jets attack coming in?
Well, much like the Lions, it's their defensive front. Muhammad Wilkerson, Sheldon Richardson. I mean, they can ruin a game just as quickly as Sue and Fairley. They are a devastating combination. Sheldon Richardson probably should have been Rookie of the Year on that side of the ball, but I can't even remember who was now. And getting older, I guess. But
yeah, I'm blanking too.
Yeah, maybe he was. So either way, if so, well deserved. If not, he got screwed. But their defense they're first against the rush. They only give up 55 yards, ninth against the pass. But
he did. He won Rookie of the Year. I just looked it up.
Perfect. Well, there we go. We do all the research. Hey, I'm watching tape here. We're good. But they're 20th in points, and the points they allow, and that's because their secondary is so terrible. But when you have those two guys up front, as we've seen in Detroit with Sue and Fairley, it might not matter.
No, and that ties in. I'm going with what scares me is the Lions' rushing game because I don't know what the heck to expect from it. Are Reggie Bush and Joique Bell both going to be at their best? Is one of them going to be good and the other bad? Is the offensive line going to give them a push or be able to compete against Richardson and Wilkerson? That's a formidable duo, as you just said, and we have a rushing attack that we don't know what to get out of. Is Reggie Bush going to be mainly a pass catcher, swing passes, just trying to get his PPR up, or is this going to be an attack that's not afraid to go up and challenge in the run game? I don't know what the answer is. I'd like to be able to say that Joique Bell is going to pound the ball between the tackles, and Reggie Bush is going to be a threat on the outside and do the balance that we were hoping for at the beginning of the season. But I can't say with any certainty that that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's completely, especially against that defensive front. Our two concerns are married there because, well, they're real concerns. Luckily, Detroit does have a few advantages, and for me, I think their biggest advantage is the fact that they have offensive playmakers. The Jets have Eric Decker, who pretty good receiver, but hasn't shown anything. He didn't show anything last year as far as getting his own separation. He hasn't shown anything this year as far as if he should really be a number one receiver. But other than him, it's pretty barren over there. They're counting on guys like Chris Johnson, who's basically, well, it should be the ghost of Chris Johnson at this point. I don't remember the last time he was that great. Chris Ivory is still a somewhat good back. I mean, he's basically
I've liked what I've seen out of him.
Yeah, and he's basically like what Joique Bell is right now. Jeremy Curley's probably their best offensive playmaker. On the other side, there's Calvin Johnson, Golden Tate, Reggie Bush, all these guys. So I feel like there's people that can make a play for Detroit when they need it on offense. I don't think the Jets have that guy.
Yeah, looking at the numbers, Ivory actually 33 attempts, 189 yards, so he's getting 5.7 per carry. That's pretty darn impressive. I mean, I watched the game against the Bears. I didn't see the other two games from the Jets to this point, but those numbers for Ivory going up against a really good Lions rushing defense, so we'll see strength meets strength there, I guess. But yeah, I see what you're going
numbers
with.
Can be inflated against the Bears.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. That's what I'm saying. I want to see what happens there. But for my biggest advantage, it's our defensive line going up against Geno Smith, who I mentioned earlier, just inconsistent play at the quarterback position, and our D-line is going to feast on that. When they get in and cause pressure, Geno Smith isn't someone that stands tall in the pocket and is going to make throws under pressure. If you get in his face, he's going to make mistakes. He's going to have errant passes, and turnovers are a problem for the Jets that they're going to continue to battle, just as the Lions have in recent weeks and years and months and whatever else. So get in his face, and Geno Smith will make the wrong decision. I think our defensive line is one of the best in football and is going to consistently do that. So those schemes that Terrell Austin comes up with and those blitz packages are going to rattle this young quarterback early in offense. So that's a huge advantage for Detroit in this game.
Yeah, Geno Smith he's basically Matthew Stafford circa 2010, but occasionally Matthew Stafford now. He doesn't throw the ball very well downfield. I think I saw a stat or a tweet. He has 30 turnovers in 19 games or something like that. So, yeah, he can kind of count on him to hopefully turn the ball over once or twice. And you're right, I do think I agree with you that I think that front four is going to wreak havoc on that offensive line because it's just, well, it's not that good. It's not absolutely terrible, but even DeBrickashaw Ferguson is having a down year. Willie Colon, whatever his name is, Brian Winters, none of them have been exactly standouts. And also, Geno Smith isn't throwing the ball well down the field. I would expect Detroit to hang back a little and try to make them to have their guys press forward, their corners press again, while keeping those safeties back and just kind of watching his eyes and seeing if they can't jump a route or two. I really expect that they'll be able to force a few turnovers, and that's why, Nick, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I have the Lions winning. I got them winning 21-13 because I don't think the Jets' offense is going to be able to put up points on this defense.
Wow, in agreement again. It's just one of those podcasts here. Yeah, I got 27-10 in this one. I got the Leos winning as well, so it's going to be tough for me to make up ground in our prediction records. But Detroit's the better team here, and I doubt few would argue with that. They are going on the road, though, so after having a bad showing on the road already in Week 2, are they going to be able to rebound and do well away from Ford Field in Week 4? We'll find out. I don't think the Jets' offense is near good enough to compete with Detroit in that regard, but I also thought last week was going to be an offensive shootout between the Packers and Lions, and it was going to be last team to have the ball was probably going to win, so throw all that to the wind, but I got 27-10 Leos in this one.
Well, yeah, you, me, our frequent guest, Jeff Risen, and everybody else who's ever watched football once or twice in their lives. So last week was going to be an offensive explosion. I didn't really, well, one, we didn't realize how good Detroit's defense was. And I don't know if, we already went into that. The offensive line for Detroit just wasn't there last week. And that leads us into our bold predictions.
Here we go.
I'm showing some serious faith here that isn't exactly well-founded, but I think that Detroit is going to complete 3 touchdown passes to 3 different receivers. Now there could be more. There could be more touchdown passes, could be more receivers, but I'm saying at least 3 different receivers with a touchdown catch, and that's including running backs and tight ends because, well, frankly, he only throws it to 2 wide receivers.
You know what would be bold, Brandon? Name the 3 different guys that are going to catch touchdowns. Come on, earn your numbers.
Oh, come on now. That's a little extreme. All right. 1, Calvin Johnson. But also
2, Calvin Johnson, and 3, Calvin Johnson. Okay,
well, Martellus Bennett had 2 scores last week, tight ends, so maybe they'll finally get the tight ends a little more involved. I think a big problem with that is they need those tight ends in to kind of protect that right side, so we'll see how that develops later in the week.
So with our predictions, you're 5-1 after you had the Lions winning.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll get into something else, another bet here in a second, there, buddy. But you got the Lions. You had them winning and getting 100 rushing yards. I had a similar prediction against Carolina. It didn't come true. Yours does. 115 yards on 38 carries, so yours come true, 5-1. I dropped 2-4, started 2-0. My last 4 have not gone according to plan. I picked the Lions to lose to Green Bay, sorry folks, and 6 combined passing touchdowns, and that was nowhere near fruition. So take these with a grain of salt, but I'm hoping to get back on the right track. I think Detroit's going to force some serious turnovers in this game, folks. The number for me is 3 at least, and I think most of those are going to come at the hand of Geno Smith. I see him in trouble constantly. I don't know if he's going to fumble in the pocket or throw picks or a combination of both, but he's going to turn the football over early and often. Give me 3 turnovers forced by the Detroit Lions.
Well, if you're really bold, you'd say who would force those turnovers.
Who's going to force the turnovers? Okay. Calvin Johnson, and Calvin Johnson.
Well, that's a good pick. You're picking Reggie versus in the Reggie versus Joik most fantasy points at the end of the season, PPR style, of course. Reggie took a huge jump, or had a huge week this week in comparison to Joik. He's now up 10, 40-30. I'm still not too worried considering Bush has a history of getting banged up. I obviously don't want to see that, and I'll be honest, if I lose this bet, well, that means that Bush had a good season. Well, hopefully that means Bush had a good season. Both didn't, suck. So at least there's a little bit of...
There we go. Bring in the excuses by week 4, Brandon. I love it.
Oh, it's not excuses. I'm just saying at least there's some solace I can take. Well, as you can see, Nick likes to give me crap. I obviously have the complete and utter right to do it every week. You guys hear the stuff he says. And you guys also can too. You can find us at Lions Central Radio on Facebook. You can find the show on Twitter at Lions Central PFC. You can find me on Twitter at Brandon Alisoglu. That's ALISOGLU. You can also find Nick Kostora at Nick Kostora. That's KOSTORA. Tora. And also, folks, we need you guys to help us get the word out there as well, not just us using our social media. And we really would love some word of mouth. If you enjoy the show, share it with another Lions fan. Tell them, hey, you got an hour to kill the snow or with breaking those leaves. You might as well throw this on. At least you'll pass the time a little bit.
Yeah, next week we'll break down the Jets game in full. We'll see who stops by. The mailbag section, folks, is always open. We love answering questions from you. We say it often, but we mean it. We love getting you guys involved as much as possible. So Twitter, Facebook, however you want to reach us, please do. Just give us thoughts on the show. If you don't want to send in mailbag stuff, just let us know what works and what doesn't, because it's you guys that are listening and telling us what's good and what's not on the show. We appreciate every bit of insight you provide. Until next week when we do review that Jets game and look forward. For Brandon Oliscu, I am Nick Castora. Thank you for tuning in to Lions Central Radio.